Why do we constantly burn out from playing The Sims? No, for real. That's like everywhere on the internet. Left and right, it's all I see. It's obviously a big issue, so today I'm going to share my top 4 reasons why we get burned out on The Sims and what we can do about it. Burnout, ironically, was never a thing when we were kids. I'm pretty sure none of the Reddit posts online were written by 10-year-olds. At least I hope not. But why was playing The Sims so much more chill when we were younger? And today, we feel more burnt out than ever. So for one, we didn't have any pressure when we were kids. We just went with the flow. I mean, the most pressure we probably had was from our sibling trying to push us off the computer after our 1 hour of gaming limitation. But that's a different story. As a kid, you don't really have any standards on your gameplay. You have no expectations, so your expectations can't really be disappointed. You also had time limit. You didn't have time to worry about being burnt out because you were on the clock. You had to get these Sims fed, you had to get them some sleep in time so that they could go to work, so that you could level up, so that you can get that promotion, so that you could buy that new PC or that new couch for their living room. I first started playing when The Sims 1 was all the rage, and that was basically the point of the game. Capitalism, essentially. And so it was a non-stop grind. I didn't have time to think about my Sim storylines or any of that. I didn't really care about that either. I just wanted to play and have fun. Also, as a kid, you have a wild imagination. It hasn't been stifled by the real life yet by being an adult. So there was no lack of ideas when it came to your stories and what you wanted to do with your Sims. You also had a more playful mindset, which is encouraged when you're still a kid. Now, if you're older, it's like, what? You still play The Sims? Weirdo. There was none of that when you were a kid. I was just generally more carefree, and it was easier to just play pretend because it just came naturally. There were also significantly less choices. The Sims 1 is a very different game from The Sims 4, especially if you didn't have all the packs, and I didn't have all the packs, so I didn't have much of an issue with being overwhelmed by all the possibilities. I was also generally just more in the moment. That's how we are as kids. We live in the present. We're not overthinking things. I don't recall creating a bucket list for my Sim back then, which is actually quite a fun thing to do, but I would just play in the moment. No purpose was needed for my Sims or anything like that. And last but not least, there was zero comparison. That was before really Tumblr, Instagram, or YouTube even, where people would show their lovely homes with their Sims, all G-shaded and reshaded up, their perfect aesthetic, or where you'd see people with these elaborate, fascinating storylines where you just look at your Sims like, okay, what am I doing here? No, there was zero comparison. At the most, you'd maybe compare yourself with your friend if you were lucky enough to have a friend that also played The Sims, or your sibling that was also playing. Like I mentioned before, there was no pressure. You're just in the moment. You didn't really care anyways. You're just having fun, so there wasn't any talk of comparison anyways. But how can we get back to that? So for one, the games that have released since Sims 1 are far more complex and they give us more choice. And so the first hurdle sucking us dry is decision fatigue. Every time we start the game, we're confronted with the decision of what to do next. With so many choices, you might not know where to start. Especially if you have a lot of packs, the choice can be quite overwhelming, and it's hard to know where to begin. And it takes a lot of energy also to continuously think of what to do next. And so my advice is to plan your session ahead of time. And you don't have to plan it all out like in infinite detail, but just generally, like maybe one big thing you want to get done during your next session. For example, I was playing with Lucas in my save file where it's mainly about Keith, but I was playing with him, and I knew in the next session I wanted to have him go on a date. I wanted him to explore his relationship with Maeve. That was just one thing I just knew that would guide my next session, and so when I booted up the game to play him, I wasn't overwhelmed. I knew exactly, what are the next steps of setting up a date, like set up a date, meet up with her and just engage with her, see, how things flow. Not much more complicated than that. You could also decide on 3 things to focus on. Like maybe you're in it for a longer session and, going on a date with Maeve is relatively quickly knocked out the park. And so maybe you come up with 3 things to focus on. Maybe one thing that's related to their relationship, one thing related to their career, and one thing related to their home. Maybe something you want to change or whatever it might be. The beauty of it is, it not only gives you some guidance the next time you boot up the game so that you feel less overwhelmed, it also gives you something to look forward to the next time you play, and so it can actually motivate you as well. Another way to get over decision fatigue is to let others make the decision for you. For example, you can choose a challenge to play. There are so many out there at this point, whether you want to go for a legacy challenge, a character-related challenge, or a build challenge. There's so many out there that take away the decision-making that basically give you an instructions sheet on what to do next with clear rules, storylines, the whole kit and caboodle. Or you could ask ChatGPT for advice. You could let ChatGPT know where you currently are in your gameplay, give them a little bit of insight about your current sim, maybe a general theme of where you're going, and then let ChatGPT make up the next 4 steps or so in your game. Or you could roll the dice on a selection of options. There's this Sims 4 spin the wheel thing that you can access, for example, where it's also kind of randomized what the next steps are. Or there's literally a page on Tumblr where they have like 83, 84 different options for you to play through. And you just roll the dice, like a digital dice that generates a number between 1 and 82 or 83, how many options there are. And then based on that, you choose then, if you roll a 4, you look at what's listed under number 4 and you play that. Super easy. A fun exercise I like to do is creating a creative priority matrix. And so this basically maps out on the x-axis the amount of energy it takes to do any given thing in the game. And the y-axis is how creative that activity is. So how much creative energy it needs from you. And so something on the lower end of the chart, like the lower left-hand bottom quadrant, would be a low creativity, low energy kind of thing you could do in the game. Doesn't take a lot of energy either way. Whereas something on the other end, like on the upper right corner of this quadrant, it would be a high creativity, high energy kind of thing that would maybe take the mick out of you a little bit. So you want to go in it knowing that you have that stamina up front. So you can draw this out for yourself and you can fill in each slot with things that you like to do in the game generally, or that are just options in the game. And so that when you boot up the game, you know how much energy you have, right? So you can then, based on that energy level and how creative you're feeling in that moment, you can choose something from those quadrants to do in the game. So for example, a low creativity, low energy kind of thing you could do in the game is level up a skill. All right, that doesn't take a lot of energy, and it's also not very creative. So you can do that if you want to kill some time and you're feeling a little bit tired, but you still want to play the game. Or you can visit a community lot. Again, not creative in the slightest. Clicking on the phone and selecting travel and picking a lot is also not really asking much of you, so you could do that. And who knows what can happen when you visit that community lot, what kind of sims you can run into and whatnot. Or you can visit family. That's also something I think I don't do enough in my game. It helps build the relationships between your sims. It helps you grow attached to the people in their vicinity, so why not? In contrast, a high creativity but still low energy activity you could do in the game is plan a vacation. That is a ton of fun, I can tell you. In German, we have something called Vorfreude, which is basically the feeling you get when you're looking forward to something. Planning a vacation in the game gives you the same kind of Vorfreude you might have if you're planning a vacation in real life. To be honest, I actually get a lot of anxiety from planning a vacation in real life because all the admin that's connected to it. So I actually have more fun planning a vacation for my Sims than I do for myself in real life. But again, you still have that element of Vorfreude. It's a little bit more creative, of course, because you want your Sims to have fun on their vacation. You might want to look into the different things you can do in the certain world that you decide on. So it's definitely more of a creative activity, but it doesn't take a lot of energy in general. Or you could renovate a room in their home. Again, this is also a little bit creative because you can play interior designer, but the room already exists and you don't have to do a full-on renovation, right? You don't have to bulldoze everything and do the room from scratch. But maybe you want to change up the color scheme or a little bit of the style. That doesn't take up too much energy and is a creative, fun outlet. Or you can edit a sim in Cast. There's a reason Cast is so popular because it's really stupid easy to play dress up in Cast, and it's really fun. And you can get really creative with the different outfit choices and how you combine accessories and hair and makeup, and I don't need to tell you, it's a ton of fun. And it's creative, but it doesn't take too much out of you. Or you can take screenshots. This is something I've been having a lot of fun lately, is just going through the worlds and taking screenshots of the landscape. So not even necessarily taking screenshots of your Sims, but taking screenshots of their world itself. That can feel very relaxing. It's also creative because you have to find the right shot. But it doesn't take a lot of energy out of you, You just press tab and focus the camera correctly and then you got a shot, right? So that's a fun thing you can add in that quarter. And now if we move on to something that is very creative and also takes a lot of energy out of you, that could be building a new home from scratch. I mean, I'm not a builder, so it takes double energy out of me, but you definitely have to be creative and it takes some time and energy to actually do that. So that is something you might want to reserve for one of your better days when you have more stamina. Or redoing an entire town. That goes kind of hand in hand with the kind of simmer that likes to redo their save file and really build lore and like redo households and everything. So that can take some time, even if you're just grabbing households and lots from the gallery, swapping that out, figuring out what to put where. You have to have the right lot size, and you kind of want the neighborhood to be cohesive. So that takes some creative energy, but also some energy, if you know what I mean. So again, something you want to reserve for when you feel up for it. And stirring up drama. Now, one might think, does this really take a lot of energy? But yes, it does. So you need to be creative, because you don't want to stir up the same type of drama all the time, right? The whole classic love triangle thing is been there, done that. That's a bit old, right? But maybe you want to create a villain and you want to move them into the town. You want to figure out a creative, unique way to add drama to your existing storyline. And that can take energy as well, actually playing that out. So it's a lot of fun. I think the fun part of it kind of trumps it needing a lot of energy. And nevertheless, it's definitely something I would put in that section of the matrix. And then if we move on to something that needs energy and attention, but maybe not so much creativity, that would be running a restaurant, for example. There's a lot of micromanaging involved there, especially if you have that cool mod from Carl, where it adds more options to your restaurant. I think you can even have a food truck. It's really cool. There's a lot more going on. And so running a restaurant can be a bit more taxing, but it's not super creative. Like, okay, you have to throw up a menu together and stuff like that. But in general, it's definitely more of I need your attention, but not much of your creativity task. And beforehand, we planned a vacation. And if we go on a vacation, that again is something where you, especially if you have a larger household, would take a lot of energy from you, because you need to keep track of all the Sims and have them do the things you planned. But the creative part you already did beforehand when you planned the vacation. So if you're feeling low energy and very creative on, say, a Friday, you can do that. You can plan the vacation, and in the session the next day, you can actually go on that vacation where you might have a little bit more energy. Also, probably one of the most energy-robbing tasks in this game to date, last but not least, is attending university, okay? That is some serious, as anyone knows. Probably doesn't even matter which game you're playing, Sims 2, Sims 3, Sims 4, there is some micromanaging needed there. So definitely you need to come in that well-rested and ready, but there's not a ton of creativity there. It's basically a bit of a grind, but it can be fun, it can be rewarding, right? You're achieving something with your sim. But yeah, it's something I would definitely put in the last bit here where it's high energy, low creativity. And so try that out for yourself. Create a creative priority matrix chart where you add in activities you like to play in the game or that you would like to in the future. And then based on how you're feeling on any given day, before a session, you can then choose something from those quadrants. And that's what you can focus on, knowing that it is aligned with your current creative and physical energy levels. Another task I can give you on your way for combating decision fatigue is to generate scenarios with ChatGPT. And so I have come up with a ChatGPT Sims scenario prompt that you can use for your own game. And I'll leave that in the description below so you can just copy paste it into ChatGPT and replace some bits and bobs. But here it goes. So create a custom gameplay scenario for The Sims 4, for example. The scenario should have the theme of rags to riches, family drama, etc. So you choose one of those different themes or you come up with your own. And then include the following details: scenario name, reward for completion, a brief description that sets up the story, instructions on which types of Sims to start with. So for example, the number of Sims, life stages, relationships, etc. And potential story endings based on different player choices. Only include reward traits, objects, or mechanics that are available in the game without creating new ones. Make the scenario engaging and flexible so that players can shape the outcome through their choices. So basically, we're ripping off the scenario idea from The Sims 4 and creating our own scenario. Unfortunately, it's not possible to create your own scenario in the game. I believe a few modders have managed to do that, but I have no idea how. And there's nothing stopping us from playing our own scenario. We don't need it in the game. So this is a way you can create your own personal customizable scenario prompt that can guide your gameplay based on the type of themes you want to play with and based on your actual save file. Like, you can even replace some of those include the following details with details from your own save file. So you can really mold and make this to your own. I tried this myself and actually came up with some really fun ideas. So I definitely encourage you to try this out if you're ever stuck and you're not sure what to do next in your game. I always really liked the scenarios that The Sims 4 introduced, and this is a way how you can create your own on the fly. Coming back to why we burn out. As a kid, we were just playing for kicks, right? There was no pressure. We were just in the moment. We didn't really care what happened. We just were in it for fun, right? While today, as we've matured, our expectations from the game, or what we want from the game, have changed as well. We are looking for fulfilling gameplay. And so in contrast, unfulfilling gameplay can be quite boring and make us feel burnt out. The thing is, without any direction, playing the game can feel pretty empty. As is the nature with any Sims game, it's mostly a sandbox game. It's open to explore, to play as you wish. So there's a bit of yourself, imagination that you have to inject into the game to get the ball rolling. That can be exhausting though, especially in The Sims 4, where I would say the bulk of gameplay hinges on you and your imagination. But you also want to feel like the gameplay you're playing has meaning, right? So to push back on your game feeling like it doesn't really matter, you need to add meaning to your gameplay. And I feel the best way to do that is to play with purpose. So that could mean giving your Sims a backstory. So who are they? What maybe Enneagram personality type do they have? Do they have any secrets or regrets? What does their childhood look like? How has that shaped their beliefs that they have today? What are they pushing for? Like what are they motivated for right now in life, and why? That brings me to the next point. You can connect the grind to a purpose. So your Sim has a wish to become a top lawyer. Why are they so set on that goal? That could be part of their backstory, or maybe part of the current story. Maybe that has to do with other Sims in the current save file. Maybe they are part of your Sim's motivation to become a top lawyer. Why is that? So if you connect that achievement to some form of purpose, that can make that gameplay feel more meaningful. So you're not just grinding for the sake of grinding, there's an actual reason behind it. You can also explore relationships. Personally, I usually fall into the trap of my Sim having only like a couple of relationships. For one, I of course pursue for them to get a partner in life so that they can grow their family. So the next relationship is maybe their kids. My Sims usually don't have parents, unless of course, I'm playing a legacy, then the parents are there. And I don't really invest much time in friends either, or exploring the relationships they might have with fellow colleagues. So why not spend some time exploring those relationships and seeing how they can add meaning to your Sim's life? I mean, like in real life, they always say it's really the connections you have with people that really add meaning to your life, and not just, having a lot of money or status and things like that. So what it all comes down to is the connections you have with other people. And so why don't you add more meaning and purpose to your Sim's life by exploring relationships that they could have? And that could also be not so great relationships. Maybe they have some enemies in the save file. That can really add some interesting gameplay. And last but not least, you can build upon the history of your save file. So instead of your Sim just living in any random neighborhood, maybe that neighborhood has certain traditions or certain holidays you might want to add to the game to solidify those traditions. Maybe there's a specific community lot in that neighborhood that has meaning, or you can set up monuments in your Sims world, or museums that touch on the history of your save file. I think something that can really add value to your game is if the world has some form of past that can impact your Sim right now. And so you can brainstorm elements that add history to your save file, add that lore that, can also ultimately influence your Sim and your gameplay and add that meaning. Here is the dating profile of my Sim, Keith Fox. So it was really fun. I have this site called belovedsims.com where I collect and curate wedding content. So that is, for example, dresses, so wedding attire, shoes, accessories, hairs. I also collect wedding venues and honeymoon destinations, but I also created a little section where you can browse through dating profiles of Sims I've created. I had to put myself in their shoes and get to know them to understand, the Sim behind the traits I chose for them and what they would look for in a partner and why. And it was really fun. Just adding that context to my Sims made them feel more real, and in turn matter more to me, to the point where I really was looking forward to playing Keith Fox. So I even went further with him and created a backstory for him and all that, and suddenly he had a purpose beyond finding just a mate, and I really became invested in his story. He actually has a past, and that past influences who he is today, and that really made me curious to know more, like where's this gonna go? And so adding that meaning behind the Sim can really move your story forward. And so, of course, the task I give you now is to give your Sim a backstory. Now, I'm making this really easy for you. You can simply use my backstory creator that I created in Notion, so it's a simple template, and you can use your imagination to create your Sim's origin story. So this template guides you to assign an Enneagram personality to your Sim. It even, once you've chosen it either randomly or, manually, it lets you know what the Enneagram personality means even for your sim. Like, what insights does it give about their personality? So what are their values? What are their virtues? Things like that. How would they interact with other sims with different personality types? It also gives you a spot where you can explore your sim's childhood. Also, what kind of secrets or regrets might your sim be harboring from the past? These are all things that you can explore with this template. Also, are they attached to anything holding them back? The backstory creator includes tarot cards that you can use to prompt the answers to these questions. And it's also a fun exercise to get to know any sims you already have to get to know them better. And so I'll leave a link below in the description where you can download the backstory creator for free and try it out for yourself. It's already helped so many simmers find meaning in their gameplay, and so I hope it helps you as well. Okay, real talk. If you're anything like me, you care about your Sims, like deeply. You've got legacies, storylines, save files that actually mean something to you. But let's be real, it's easy to lose track. One day you're totally invested, and then suddenly you're not. You forget who lives where, what was supposed to happen next, or even why you love that sim in the first place. That's exactly why I made the Sim Guardian. This Notion system helps me stay connected to my Sims by giving me one place to track everything. And I mean everything. I can see my entire save file at a glance, who lives where, all the lore, what everyone's working toward. Every Sim has their own page for backstory, traits, relationships. I can even see their own businesses and shared memories. And every legacy has its own page as well to save their bloodline, heritage, and history. I can manage my rotational gameplay, challenges, storyline ideas. It's all here. Heck, I can even keep track of my mods and CC in this system. It's the most organized I've ever been. And honestly, it's the easiest it's ever been to keep track because I don't have to figure out where to start. I've already done the work of setting things up. Now I can just fill it in. So yeah, it's $100. But if you're serious about your Sims, it's worth it. Because the stories you're playing, they deserve to be remembered. And the next big culprit that is causing us to feel burnt out is something we can't really do much about, unfortunately, and that is bugs and corruption. This has been a stickler really ever since game development. I don't think there's any game that exists without bugs and corruption, but I feel like they've really intensified. I definitely feel like it's more so an issue now with later games, the more complex every game has become. And I think at this point, it's also time to talk about the elephant in the room. We were told that we're not getting a Sims 5, or at least in the near future. But at this pace, the way the Sims 4 is looking, the whole we don't want to move on to the Sims 5 because we don't want you to lose your Sims 4 progress is really mute, considering we're at risk of losing our progress anytime we do a patch update or buy the wrong pack. Navigating immersion, breaking bugs, and crashes is exhausting to say the least. And quite traumatizing. It feels like we're in constant limbo waiting on fixes to fix a patch update. Right? A patch drops to fix something and ultimately break something new. And I understand that these games are really complex and hard to diagnose and find the issue. But when you think about it, I feel like The Sims 3 is more complex than The Sims 4, and I don't recall things being this dire with The Sims 3. I mean, it could be my nostalgic brain just thinking, great things about The Sims 3. And The Sims 3, she ain't perfect, okay? She has flaws to this day. Okay, there's a reason we're praying for a 64-bit version. And save files go corrupt with Sims 3 and Sims 2 all the time. But I don't remember patches causing it to this extent. It's crazy. And the thing is, these patch updates are super frequent, and they often come with new bugs. It's not just every other patch update. It's like, as sure as the sun will rise, we know a patch update will come with, a handful of bugs. And lately, man, these bugs have been trying me. It is so stressful knowing your long-year save file is effectively always at risk, because the latest bug that came with for rent or from just basically your save files getting more and more complex, which I guess was the case when if you add for rent to your game, then you have super huge lots that can have up to 6 households, stuff like that. Shit gets really complex. And if you have lots with a lot of items on them and things like that, if you have really old save file with a lot of Sims and a lot of data, then it's even worse. And that's actually quite sad, because it's us legacy players that try to build long-standing, long-year save files, where it's especially our save files that matter so much to us. It's not just a rando save file that some jokester kind of simmer, the kind of simmer that likes to just experiment and play games and do chaos. It's not the end of the world if they lose their save file, because they weren't attached anyways. But it's simmers like us that have these save files that we've invested so much time in and so much of our heart, and then that just lose it because of a a weird corruption bug that was introduced with a new patch, or from the game just having too much content. Like, it's really hard, and it's just knowing, like, at the back of your mind every time you boot up the game that this could be the one time, this could be the session that kills it all. It's just really exhausting, and it's hard to lean into the game and for it to feel immersive if you're looking over your shoulder for these signs that your game might become corrupt. Like, save your game a lot. Seriously, back that stuff up. Like, it happened to me where I was playing my favorite sim of all time, Ida Muniz, and I had to move her current household to a fresh save file because I kept getting the infinite loading screen for more and more lots. It was weird. It was really funky, and it was really frustrating. Like, I had to move her apartment, her parents, and a couple of her friends to a new save file. It was a lot of work to collect them all and then put them in a new save file. And then I had the issue that her parents, for some reason, were at the end of their life stage once I put them in the new save file. And so they kept dying on me. But I managed to cheat their age to a different life stage so that I could avoid that, because the thing is, I like to keep track of the time going on in my game. And so I was trying to also, at the same time, modify the game time. I was trying to, like, fast forward time by, like, messing with the clock. It took me like 20 minutes to keep fast forwarding the clock by a few hours so that I could finally get her to the point where she was officially in, because I keep track of that in my Notion, on which sim year we're in, which day, which season, and stuff like that. And so I was trying to get her back to that point in the new save file. By doing that, I kept killing her parents by accident. And so I had to make them, like, adults, and then I had to age them up again. It was a mess. And of course I lost the items in her inventory, which wasn't so bad, I don't think. But yeah, it was stressful. And now I'm looking over my shoulder the whole time, hoping that it's not gonna happen again. So my advice to you is prepare for the worst. Because if we're keeping it real, it's not a question of if, but when things will hit the fan. And so just be ready for corruption at any time. And so for one, keep a log of the history and family trees. The history and lore you've collected in your game and painstakingly worked and developed for, it won't be completely lost if your save file goes bust if you've recorded it somewhere else. I recommend getting the My Family Tree app by Chronoplex. It's completely free with no paywall limitations or anything like that. And it has a crap ton of features, especially in my opinion, one of the most important features, and that is GEDCOM compatibility. And so GEDCOM is a specific file format that is common and universal amongst genealogy apps. Now, this is not a file format that is used for the Sims designed family trees apps like the Sims Tree or the Sims Hub, I think it's called. Those use a proprietary file format. So if those were to ever go offline for any reason, like we have experienced in the past with the Plum Tree, a lot of Simmers were burned with that. They lost all their progress if they didn't realize in time to download their trees and to safeguard that. So the beauty of the GEDCOM file format is you can easily export it and put it into any other proper genealogy app. And so you have that flexibility and easy backup. And another plus is when you're playing The Sims 4 or The Sims 3, there are mods you can use to actually export your family tree in a GEDCOM file format. And it makes it super easy to pop that into the My Family Tree app, or of course any other app that is a proper genealogy app and works with GEDCOM file format. And that saves you so much time when it comes to building and setting up your family trees. So you just have to maybe add some photos and some additional information, but the connections are already plugged in. Absolutely fantastic. And then when it comes to keeping track of the lore surrounding your families, now you can, of course, still use the Family Tree app for this. The My Family Tree app by Chronoplex includes sections where you can add photos and even a little story for your sim and attributes and stuff like that. But I personally recommend and love the Notion app, in particular the Sim Guardian system I've built for Notion. Now, this is not created for the casual simmer. This is for your more serious type of simmer, you know, that wants to be organized, creative, and is very sentimental about their Sims. This is built for them, and it makes it super easy to not only save all of the screenshots and the memories, but also connect them to your Sims, to their legacies, to their plans, their goals, and everything. So it's really like a fleshed out system that lets you keep track of everything and anything about your Sims, also your gameplay, your sessions, all sorts. So you can get that on my shop, but you can also, if you want a more, you know, minimal skim down Notion template, you can download my Sims year tracker for free. That includes space to also keep track of your sessions and screenshots in as well. It's a very simplified template, but if you're just getting started with Notion and you just want something simple, then that is great as well. But no matter what system or note app, whatever you choose, keep track of your Sims history and their lore, keep track of your Sims in general. Also important, regularly make backups. That's super important. So of your save files, of your Sims. One way to back up lots in particular is to upload them to the gallery. You can also upload your households to the gallery. That way it makes it super easy to replicate your Sims if you were to ever lose, like a particular Sim were to glitch out, or a status of them. It's really tedious to try to rebuild a home, like a family legacy home or anything like that from scratch, from memory or even from screenshots. And so just back that up. That way you have that version in your gallery, and nobody can take your gallery away. I mean, God forbid that anything happens with the gallery now. Oh, let's not speak that into existence. But for the most part, the gallery is safe. So you can download anything from there that you saved. And that way, if a lot glitches out for any reason, or you lose a save file with your Sims, you can recreate them by just popping them into a new save file. You can also upload photos and mementos via the rooms feature in the games. So you don't only have the option to upload a Sim or a home to the gallery, you can also upload individual rooms. And so this is how you can back up actual photos or mementos from your game. Because, there is that weird corruption bug that blacks out your photos so that, photos that were otherwise perfectly fine are just show a black screen and the information seems to be erased. I don't know what happens there, but you can back those up so that if that ever were the case, so that you just have to place the room from the gallery onto your lot and then you have your photos again. And also any mementos. For example, if you have heirlooms and they have information attached to them, I think you should be able to also just the same add them to a room, and that way they're safe in the gallery if anything were to happen. And if push comes to shove, you have a really weird bug, you didn't back up your lot or anything like that, and you have to start from scratch, use your imagination to tie those bugs into your story. For example, maybe there was a storm, maybe some weird apocalyptic thing happened, I don't know, but come up with something creative, a reason why your Sim looks totally different, or the lot doesn't look quite like it did before, or why you're starting brand new. And yeah, sometimes, the game gives you chaos, and it could give you chaos in form of bugs that, prompt a different storyline. So yeah, if push comes to shove, that's a way you can work with any corruption or bugs that might come. And now we're on to the last reason why we might burn out, and that is perfectionism. We spend hours in cast and build by mode, only to abandon the save file when things don't go to plan. I think we need to embrace the chaos. So I know it's tough because our save files, our Sims, they matter a lot to us, and we don't want things to go awry. We don't want everything we've so painstakingly put together to fall apart once we press play. And it can be quite stressful and give us a lot of anxiety when we do. But I think we need to learn to embrace that chaos, okay? And any uncertainty that might come from letting go of that control. And not everything has to be perfect. And so remember, it's a game. We're here to play, not to be perfect. Perfecting a save file is exhausting after a while. And the more elaborate the save file, the more time we've put into it, the higher that lost cost fallacy, right? The more pressure we have for everything to be even more perfect, right? And so I just say, press play before you're ready. Before you're even that deep into preparing your save file, before you feel like you have too much stake in the matter. Because I think the more time you invest in preparing your save file, the more pressure you feel that everything has to go well once you press play and has to go by plan. And also, try not to compare your Sims and your storylines with others. There are so many different aesthetics flying around in the community, so many fun storylines and everything, that you might feel like yours is a bit mediocre, a bit bland, a bit basic, because it's not as elaborate or fancy as what you see online. But that's just a recipe for disaster. All that matters is that you're having fun with your Sims and with their storylines. And if that means you have to be off Instagram for a little while and not look at what everybody else is doing, then that might be what you need to do. But think back when we were kids, right? We didn't compare ourselves. We were just so nonchalant about things. Try to channel your inner child and let go of that need or expectation for your gameplay to be a certain way, right? I was guilty of this myself. I wanted the perfect save file, so I downloaded a custom one by Analea, the Beyond save file. It's absolutely ace. I highly recommend. And I began swapping out some of the lots for others that I preferred, but then I ended up being blocked by bugs. and I couldn't move forward because I had these loading issues. But even if I hadn't been, it still would have taken a while for me to place all my favorite lots and customize the save file further to my liking. But then I came to the realization that having the perfect residential rental in Copperdale or a restaurant in Tartosa wasn't really important for my gameplay. The thing is, the gameplay I planned was meant for Moonwood Mill anyways, so did it really matter what I placed in all the other worlds? No. I only needed a few things. So I let go of that perfectionism and I started simple. I accepted that it didn't have to be perfect from the start, or at any point for that matter, right? And I reminded myself that I can always place lots later down the line if I realize that my story needs them. So with Keith Fox in mind, I knew I wanted to play with him. I knew already the save file I wanted to play in. And I figured, okay, what is the bare minimum that I need to actually get started? And I thought, why don't we create a backstory for him? But then I had to catch myself and make sure that I didn't spend too much time on that and make it super elaborate. So I kept it short and simple. And then I allowed myself to download just one lot for him in his storyline because I decided that he wanted to refurbish an old cabin, an abandoned cabin. So I downloaded that and I placed that in the world. And that's all I did. Well, I did also replace another lot, but that was just because it was bugging out. But effectively, I only put one lot in the save file for a storyline. Everything else I left as is. And then I was ready to press play. So that was the simple equation. So instead of adding too much to the save file and reinventing the wheel, I just took the save file as it was. I mean, that was the whole point about grabbing a pre-done, pre-made save file, right? That I didn't have to do all that work. And so I just let it be. And so my task to you is give yourself a deadline. When you're creating your Sims or you're building homes, preparing a save file, it's all part of the fun, but you don't want it to keep you from playing, right? From pressing play. Done is better than perfect. That is a quote by Sheryl Sandberg, and a very wise one at that. So I want to help you set up boundaries, to help you curb your perfectionism, and finally press play. So if you're busy building that perfect save file or brainstorming the perfect storyline or legacy family, commit to playing by a certain date. And then once you have, press play, no matter how finished your storyline or save file is. And if you're still struggling, if you're still feeling bored, like it's not really moving forward, you might be stuck in your comfort zone. If that's the case, check out this video on how to move past it.